It was a question at the center of the financial crisis. How could ratings companies give their top marks to subprime mortgage bonds that in many cases ended up being worthless? Bloomberg has learned that once again, Standard & Poor's is giving AAA ratings to bonds backed by subprime loans. Now, that is a higher rating than S&P has given the U.S. government. Joining us now is a former Moody's analyst, Sylvain Raynes. He is the co-founder of R&R Consulting. It is a firm that looks at risk in debt securities. You can say what you want now, Sylvain, because you're not under the Moody's umbrella. How crazy is this?
Well, one can never really, one can never really say what one wants. But the real question is not, is it possible for $1 out of a $10 pool to have a AAA rating? Yes, it is. It's also possible for $2, perhaps. So the amount is the question, not whether the rating is correct.
59. We're looking at 59 here.
Yes, that we don't know. But the real question is, why is the United States not AAA rated? That is the real issue.
But especially when some independent analysts said a few months ago, Sean Egan, and you were just talking about it because he was on your show.
From Egan Jones.
He said in January the U.S. shouldn't be triple rated. So maybe that's not the question, but the question is, how can some subprime debt just look better on paper than the U.S. government?
Or France is it also a good question, right? I mean, why is the U.S. not a AAA, but France is and subprime debt is? Do they not look at all these things at the same time or relative to one another?
Sovereign analysis is very different from structured finance. A structured pool is an isolated pool of assets. Sovereign debt has all kinds of other issues. But clearly, if Microsoft is AAA, then so can the U.S. Really, the issue with a sovereign is not a downgrade or a default, which is associated with downgrades. It's more of a political issue. So the downgrade of the U.S. was a political maneuver, probably as a preemptive move by S&P. It was a mistake. Everybody now says it was a mistake, including S&P. I'm sure behind closed doors, of course. And what will happen is that there has to be some more competition.
Sylvain, I want to ask you two things, because our economics editor, Michael McKee, was on with us. He's two theories why this whole system looks okay. One is the risk is dispersed. All the loans won't go bad at once. But, of course, critics say, you know, basically, if you learned nothing from 2008, you can just lean on that first reason. The other argument, structured securities deserve top grades if they're backed by enough collateral to weather default. But that also seems like a very, very bad reference to the credit crisis.
Perhaps what we're saying is the messenger is the wrong messenger. And S&P is largely, and at least partly, responsible for what has happened. They're the ones who made those huge mistakes. Now, we would like to say, if Winter said spring is in my heart, would you believe him? Would you believe S&P if they say that?
You gotta write a little lyric for that.
I think it's the wrong messenger for perhaps the right message. Is 59% the right number? I don't know.
Well, and maybe we rely too much on them. Your point is a good one, that we need more competition in this in this market, in this arena. And my question oftentimes is, who are they working for, right? I mean, who are they making these ratings for? Is it for investors? Because if you want to actually, you say maybe it's a political rating. Well, that doesn't really help investors in the debt, does it?
No, no. Moody's used to be called Moody's Issuer Investor Service. Now they're really called Moody's Issuer Service. They have changed their politics, their tune. They are now encouraging deals to happen. The credit rating business has become a commercially successful business. It used to be a very boring business. Look at myself, for instance. I was a rating analyst. I'm totally uncharismatic. Therefore,
right now,
we think you're very charismatic.
People at cocktail parties are now clamoring to talk to you. Is that what you're saying?
The status of a rating analyst has gone way out of control. It has to become a more sober and ordinary business with hard analysis, and definitely, you are correct, Matt. We need more competition. It's not the job of the SEC.
Would your consulting firm welcome more competition? Because you're implying that.
We would love to be part of that competition, of course. It's not the job of the SEC to decide who's good and who's not good at valuation. They're not a valuation shop. They're a law enforcement shop. So they should, let 1,000 rating agencies bloom. Some will survive, some will not. But at least the impact of one agency like S&P, no matter how big it is, eventually will be diluted and will become smaller. I'm sure S&P is getting smaller as we speak.
I'm sure it is. Sylvain, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you,
Sylvain Raynes,
and Matt,
founder of R&R Consulting, joining us there for a good, lively discussion on the ratings agency.
That's right, a very charismatic discussion, I thought, as well.
See you, Sylvain.